Pretty amazing stuff, really, right? A guy who was twice over a walk-on, was essentially replaced coming off of injury at Texas Tech, and then walked on in Oklahoma, sat out, earned his spot, and then became a Heisman Trophy finalist and ultimately a Heisman Trophy winner. Then marched all his way to being the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. And it is one of those things where you're like, hey, dude, look, you made it. You made it. And Baker understands what makes him who he is this, look, I've been told no. I wasn't a 5-star. Even if you want to make the argument that Baker Mayfield could have had scholarship offers at lower level Division I schools, the fact is that Big 12 schools didn't offer him. And that Texas Tech did find Pat Mahomes and Davis Webb to be better prospects, better talents than he was, and that's why he left and went to Oklahoma. So this massive bag of chips on his shoulder has come out several times this year. It came out on Christmas Eve when he tweeted at Colin Cowherd. This from Baker Mayfield's own Twitter account. Quote, "Merry Christmas to everybody. Enjoy the time with loved ones, especially a special time of year. Even you, at Colin Cowherd, you Grinch." All right, I like that. I mean, because all Colin Cowherd said was, look, he can play, but he's a better version of Case Keenum. Case Keenum with a better arm. Same offense, same historic numbers, same success at college, also like Case Keenum undersized, same level of intelligence, just slightly better arm strength. But a sizable amount of ego, which sometimes writes checks that his body can't cash. Right? Colin, like people I know in the NFL, said that Sam Darnold is a better prospect and ultimately has the higher ceiling, even though if he hasn't performed as well statistically as Baker Mayfield. What's fascinating about this is why it works, why it seems to be working. Right? Like Kevin Durant tries to be the evil villain. And I don't think it's a racial thing, although maybe there is a certain racial element to it. But it's because Kevin Durant's 7 feet tall. Right? But Kevin Durant LeBron James tried to wear the black hat when he left Cleveland and went to Miami originally. He tried to be like, come on, bring on the haters. I'm taking notes. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to remember it. It's a lot. It's a burden to carry. Now, one of the big differences is in the NBA, you can be put on an island and isolated. You have to play both ends of the floor. And Baker Mayfield is playing the most protected position in sports. So even if you want to level Baker Mayfield, you better wait till an interception. And even then, you got to be very careful when you get a shot in because you can get thrown out of the game. But Baker Mayfield, this act works not because I don't believe because he's white, although I'm sure there's an element to it. It's because of his story, because he's undersized, and because it's Cleveland. It should be noted that this winning streak or the wins that they have accrued, like who's the best team they've beaten? Carolina, Atlanta, Cincinnati. Like Baker Mayfield did beat the Baltimore Ravens. That was before the quarterback change was made in Baltimore. Baltimore was a different club. It was an ugly game. They did, in fact, win that game. Let's not take away wins that he has. That's the one win over a potential playoff team that they have. And look, he walked into the perfect setup. They'd won one game the past 2 years. He's replacing Tyrod Taylor, who looked like a guy who could not play the quarterback position. Looked like a backup, that he essentially is, who's a part-time starter. He was with a coach who appeared to be over his head. He's in a city where everybody leaves, and a team that quietly has accrued a bunch of talent during the past couple of years. And if you go back to last season, last couple of years, didn't have quarterback play, didn't have the right skill position play. They had 2 top 5 picks. They used them on guys that were ready to play and ready to play right away, and they both contributed greatly eventually. Right? Like, it works because it's Cleveland. Not just because it's the Browns, because the Browns have won 7 games this year. They're 7-1. They had a last place schedule, and they're 1 win away against the Baltimore Ravens on the road, 1 win away from being above 500, which seems like they'll throw a victory parade for being 8-7-1. part of success or part of perceived success is based upon expectations. And the Browns have been the laughingstock of the NFL the past couple of years. And so considering, remember, they gave away games based upon their kicking game and laughable errors the first couple games of the season. Even with Tyrod Taylor, they gave away a couple games because of their kicking game. But everyone said they were actually picked, and many people who cover the NFL picked them to compete for the playoffs this year because they do have talent. They do have dudes there. They did spend a bunch of money. They went out and got Jarvis Landry from Miami. They have drafted well in the defensive line. But because they won one game in the past 2 years, because LeBron James has twice left the city, because they're kind of the laughingstock, because it's Baker Mayfield who's 6'0", 100-0, walk-on Rudy type of story in terms of our imagery. Look, I think it's a great story, but let's not kid ourselves. He was, in fact, the number one pick of the NFL draft, right? He won the Heisman Trophy. We paint it as this complete underdog story. Yeah, teams missed out of high school. Teams missed on a transfer. No one missed. If he didn't go 1 overall, he was going in the top 10. The Jets were going to draft him because they thought Sam Darnold was the rightful number 1 overall pick, or maybe the Giants wouldn't be dumb enough to take running back over quarterback, but they were. But because of the narrative, because it's Cleveland, because it's Baker, somehow we become super cool with Baker continuing to run his mouth.